Well, no puppet show today, I'm sorry to say. Instead, we're getting to see the photobomb kitty. This is Audie, and Audie showed up in my yard a couple of years ago, hungry, beaten up, and I fed him, trapped him, neutered him, and released him, as one is supposed to do with strays. But Audie did not want to be released. I guess he figured that after I got him neutered, considering what I took from him, I owed him a home. So he has stayed. Interestingly enough, we found out when he was neutered, he only had one testicle, which is astounding to me because this is like a super testosterone kitty. So that is Audie. All right, go play. They just wanted to see a bad cat. I said, well, I have one. Today, we are going to talk about steampunk because we are building a steampunk lamp. And I have some examples of steampunk lamps here, and I know the background is busy, so I'll show you some pictures of these isolated against a white background. This one is sort of Victorian steampunk. We have the Victorian globe over here, the more futuristic dome with the Edison bulb, pocket watch, which actually works. This comes from my bedroom, so at least that way I can tell the time. This Victorian steampunk. This piece, which is the piece that started us off on the Let's Build Steampunk Lamps, is a piece I made a few years ago out of a vintage voltage meter. It's a nice wood voltage meter, probably from the 1930s or 40s. We have two bulbs. My thought when I was making this was not, oh look, I'll make a television with rabbit ear antenna, which is sort of what it looks like now. I kind of had a Jacob's ladder in mind, you know, with the electricity arcing back and forth like from the old Frankenstein movies. It just turned out to look like a television. Still, I like it. This one, which is an old fan from probably the 40s, early 50s, converted to a lamp, and I made a mistake on this one. When I was looking at this, as I was putting them out so that you could see them, I realized this is a spider web, and I have a little Jules Verne steampunky octopus in the middle. No, I need a spider. I need a nice big black beaded spider. And the housing of the lamp, this body here, which is done in copper, no, that needs to be a sort of metallic black. This is not a steampunk lamp. This is a goth lamp. I just didn't really see it at the time. So this lamp is going to be redone. But that's not what we're doing today. Oh, and I have this out too. I picked this up at Goodwill a couple of weeks ago. Jocelyn took one look at it and said, ooh, steampunk. And I'm sure you thought she was just nuts. Let me show you what it is. These globes, I usually end up having to pay about $10 a piece for these glass domes. It's the best price I can get. Except this one was $2 at Community Aid. So I'm going to have to soak it in hot water or acetone nail polish or something to break down this glue, because there is my $2 globe. And as for the little flowers, they are just going into the trash. But yeah, steampunk. This is a lamp part. Now, the piece we are doing today is this voltage meter, and this is going to become our steampunk lamp. So I'm going to take a couple of seconds off, clean the lamps off the table, get ready to start to work on this. So when I come back, we're going to be building a lamp. See you in a minute. Before we get started on our steampunk lamp, I should probably explain why it is I look like I just jogged 10 miles. It's because I feel like I've just jogged 10 miles. It was 93 degrees today, and when Jocelyn and I were out, we actually checked on her car thermometer, and it's not that much cooler now, even though it's evening. However, if I had the air conditioning on, you would not be able to hear a word I am saying. Consequently, I've got windows open, I've got a fan going. You can hear me, but it's still darn hot in here. But as long as you can follow what's going on, that's what counts. This is going to be our steampunk lamp. This is a voltage meter. Now, this voltage meter was made in Chicago, and it says so right at the bottom here, which of course you can't see. There's no way I could get you to see that. However, it says Chicago 10, Illinois. And 10 was the old postal code for Chicago, the 2-digit postal codes that were in use before the zip codes. They were introduced in 1943, and in 1963 they were replaced by the 5-digit zip code. The zip codes, 5 digits, they became mandatory in 67, so there was a 4-year transition period. However, for a city like Chicago, because it was the big cities that really needed those 5-digit zip codes because they had larger populations to accommodate, they would have gone over to the 5-digit zip code first chance they got. So we can date this pretty safely at 1953 plus or minus 10 years. We know it's 1943 to 1963. I suspect it's on the earlier side, and I base that on the obvious Art Deco style. By the 60s, things were changing. Bakelite wasn't so popular. So I'm going to consider this to be probably early 50s, possibly even late 40s. And that is our voltage meter. First thing I did, take off the bottom. Take a peek inside. This actually has a lot of room to work with, because what I'm going to be putting in is some relatively small electrical wires, and there's plenty of room for that. So that was the lucky part of this. Now, when I was initially preparing this, first thing I had to do was drill some holes. So I have a little block here, which I dropped right in here, and then a larger block I could drill into the top, and it was supported. The reason this is important is this is Bakelite, this is plastic, it's old plastic. We know it is at least, 65 years old, somewhere in there. When you're drilling into old plastic, it's risky. It becomes brittle. And I wanted support to make sure it didn't crack. So, the drilling. I started off with a very thin bit, a bit so thin I could have snapped it in my fingers if I wanted to, and drilled 2 tiny pilot holes through. That gave my larger drill bit something to bite into, so it didn't go skittering all across the top. It stayed in place, drilled the holes. That process took about an hour. I was very, very careful. It was almost like letting that drill bit just slowly and laboriously grind away the plastic that was a really labor-intensive job. When I was done, of course, I popped out my wood blocks, and then I took my Dremel with a grinding bit to clean up the edges of the hole. And then the easy way dawned on me. So one of the things this channel is about is you let me make the mistakes so you don't have to. When I put this little hole, and this is where the electrical cord is going to come out. Let's see if I can, well, I'm going to pop this in so you can see what it's going to look like. There. That's what it's going to look like when the cord's in. I took that grinding bit on my Dremel and I just ground through. It took about 10 minutes, and the only reason it took that long was because the Dremel is a very high-speed piece of equipment, and consequently I had to stop frequently to make sure the plastic didn't overheat, crack, and melt. So, lesson learned, if I ever have to do this again, it will be the Dremel, it will be a grinding bit, it will not be a drill. Now, even before I put the holes in here, I noticed there were two little cylinders of plastic attached to the top here. Well, actually, they're not attached, they're molded into the plastic. It was on either side of these holes. What they are is their screw supports. So clearly this was made so that somebody could screw something into the top, and those little plastic supports give the screw something to hold on to. But they are about 1/4 of an inch, and I have to compensate for that. Because when I put these little threaded pipes in, they're going to hold my wires. When I put these in, they are going to butt up against those little supports on one side, and I need to make sure that they have something on the other side to butt up against as well, a spacer. So, that's what this is. And I made sure it was white so you could see it. So here's my glue gun. Here's a nice little dollop of glue. Oh, yum. And I know some of you do not like the hot melt glue, but that's probably the only way I can really do this. So I've got my little spacing block in there. There we go. You can see it, it's nice and white. Okay, that is our threaded rod. And I'm going to hold it in place with this. Now, if you'll remember from some of our lamp repair videos, this is a coupling. And the couplings, among other things, they're used to hold pieces of pipe together. In other words, here, I'll show you like this. There. But what I'm doing with them is I'm actually making my lamp supports that will hold the sockets out of couplings. I'm using them as decorative elements. Let's get this little butter in there too. One of the things that is very characteristic of steampunk design is asymmetry. Some of the lamps that I showed you earlier, in particular the one with the little sort of rabbit ears, is quite symmetrical. However, the best steampunk design is usually not symmetrical. And a lot of that comes from the fact that the theory, the myth really, behind steampunk is, because this comes from a genre of science fiction, is that technology evolved differently, or there was some sort of apocalypse, or for some reason, heaven only knows what, things were reused differently. Something would have been repurposed to create lighting, or the Victorians would have developed technology that we have in the 21st century, but they would have used their own aesthetic. So modern technology superimposed onto a Victorian landscape. And the Victorians, frankly, were not real big into symmetry. It was fine with them if it was there. If it wasn't a big deal. Oh, when I was deciding on the design for this, now I'm just snapping this together as we talk, but I actually laid out couplings, and I tried laying them out on the table. Didn't work, so I grabbed a length of pipe and just began screwing them on, screwing them off, deciding what looked good and what didn't look good. I started off thinking I wanted to use a candle socket like this. Very simple, very plain. It just seemed a little more harmonious with an Art Deco looking voltage meter. I did not like it at all. It totally didn't work for me. And so I went with a more decorative candle socket instead. So it's just that simple. This is now our lamp. It was just like putting together Tinker Toys. I came up with a design I liked just by building up the couplings, and again, I wanted asymmetry. So now, because I used very small sockets, these are, well, let me take this off so you can see what this looks like next to his friend, the other side. Okay, we will get that later. Here we go. This is not part of the socket. That's just the little threaded portion inside. This is the size difference. Very significant. So I had to use these sockets for these socket cups. And this is basically, it's about the size of a Christmas light. And that presented a little bit of a problem. And the reason why is if I pop this in, screw it on, this is just floating loose in here. The only thing that would be holding it in place is the wire connection when I take these wires and connect them to these. That's it. It's just hanging in there. So what I'm going to have to do is hot glue again. The advantage hot glue has in this situation is I'm going to get a mechanical bond. I'm going to force a little hot glue down inside this threaded area So the hot glue is going to sort of seep into the threads. And this, which has fluting on the sides, just like a regular Christmas, I mean, you've all seen Christmas light sockets. They're all fluted, ridged. The hot glue will just seep into these ridges, seep into the threads, and when it dries, this won't be going anywhere. It will actually be very hard to dislodge it. Now, if I need to dislodge it, of course, all I have to do is just heat this up, and the glue will soften and I can do it. But as long as it's not heated up, I should have a very good mechanical bond here. And that's what I need to hold this in place. Because the idea of having these two pieces held together by nothing more than a wire connection is just, whoa, crazy irresponsible. I mean, even for me, that would be crazy irresponsible. So that is the next thing we're going to do. Fill this with a little bit of hot glue. Now comes the wiring part. So we've got our little sockets secured in their cups. And now we have to deal with the wiring. Now, this wire had originally been attached to this cord. That's how these little Christmas type sockets came. It was a socket attached to a cord with an inline switch. That's how I bought them. And I just snipped them off because they have to be cut and reattached anyway. And now that's what I have to do. So there are two wires, and in any electrical cord, just look at any lamp cord, and you'll see it's actually two wires that are held together by this plastic insulation. And what we're going to do with this, I'm going to take a knife and just score down in between our two separate wires, and they just pull apart. It's just that simple. Now, we've got this plastic insulation all over the wires, and we have to deal with that. Now, there are tools you can use, and there are tools, you probably should, in fact, use the tools. But I've been doing it for a long time like this, so this is just what I do. I score with a sharp knife along the insulation, probably about a ½ an inch in from the end, because that's about as much wire as I want to expose. I'm going to do it very carefully because I don't want to cut through the wire. I don't even want to cut down to the wire. I'm just going to cut through the plastic there until it just slides off. And it will slide off relatively easily. I'm just going to do the same thing with the next wire. And again, I'm just scoring it lightly. I don't want to go down to the wire. I just want to score it enough so that I can snap it off. And again, there are tools that you can use to do this, and frankly, that's what I should be doing, but as I say, I've done it sort of forever this way, so this is how I'm doing it. All right, there we go. Now, remember, one of these is ridged and one of these is bald, and I'm sure you will remember that from black bald brass. This is our ridge side. I'm turning the ridged wire up, simply so that when it comes out the other end, I don't have to fuss with it. I know exactly what I am attaching. So, this is going on top here. Well, yes, you could pretend to cooperate. Ah, there we go. I'm just screwing that down. Okay. Now what I have in here is wires sticking out from my sockets. And I have this wire. This is my cord, this is my inline switch, and it's going through that little hole in the back, coming out. And now all I have to do is twist those wires together. I am going to twist all of our ridged wires together and all of our balled wires together. And if you'll recall when I said we're using that mnemonic device of black balled brass, it's because we only actually need to remember one of them. As long as we know that the balled wire goes on the brass screw and attaches to the black wire, we know that anything left over gets wired together, and that is white ridged silver. So what we're doing now is we are wiring all of our ridged wires, and there will be 3 of them together, and then all of our balled wires together. Okay. So here's how it was done. I have this wire. I had one wire, or one set of 2 wires from each of these sockets. It's 3 wires, all twisted together with the wire nuts. You can see them, they're yellow. 3 wires twisted together. All the ridged wires are together. All the balled wires are together. And good heavens, we've been through this so many times, I'm sure you can say that in your sleep. So, next thing we're going to do is put our bottom on. Now, remember we took that off. Oh, here, I'm sorry. I should have shown you this. This had been the bottom, but I flipped it over because it had this lovely little piece of black paper, and I thought that looked more attractive than the aluminum. So that's the way we're going to go. Now, when I got this little voltage meter, it was missing one of its little rubber feet. So I actually had to go out and get some new rubber feet. And that's what we're putting on now, our new little rubber feet. Not a big deal, just little rubber feet going in. You can get little rubber feet like this. I got these on eBay. I don't remember what I paid for them. It wasn't very much. I'm just popping these on. Here we go. Now, just in case you're wondering why I went with candelabra sockets on this instead of standard. This is a standard incandescent Edison bulb, and just, whoa, take a look at that. This is an LED Edison bulb. As you can see, these, they're actually taller than the entire voltage meter. So, you can get Edison bulbs in this candelabra size. But again, steampunk, asymmetry. I decided I was going to go with 2 different bulbs just for the visual effect. This was nothing more than just an aesthetic judgment. So here we go. Okay. Oh dear, that is just so bright. Okay. There we go. We are done. Our steampunk lamp, this is going to be a giveaway piece. So we have to have some kind of contest. Geez, and you know I love the giveaways and I love the contests, but I'm not going to do anything as emotionally just cathartic as let's all talk about our dads or Muhammad Ali. Let me give you something easy this time. When I was looking at designs for this, I started thinking to myself, gee, you know what I want to do? One of these days I want to go out and get myself a nice old Philco Predicta television set. And make my own interocitor. So, I'm sure a lot of you are saying to yourself, what the devil is an interocitor? Some of you know. I know some of you know. So, here is our steampunk giveaway contest. Interocitor, Gilligan's Island. What's the connection? 2 words. Post your answers. By the way, you can look this one up on the internet. You will find it. So, that's it. Post to this video. All of the information you need for the contest rules are going to be posted below in our contest rules section. By entering the contest, you are agreeing that you have read and understood the rules and you will be bound by them. So, good luck. I'm sure a great many of you are going to get it. It's not like I'm going to have like one winner to choose from. So, 2 words, interocitor and Gilligan's Island. What is the connection? All the correct answers, I'm just going to do a random drawing and choose a winner from among them. And this goes home with you. And before we're quite through, I do want to show you some pictures because I have a picture of our Cogsworth Gears to Jewel Etsy shop giveaway. That was our first giveaway. Our winner was Jess Baylog. She gave us the Muhammad Ali quote. And Jess has gotten her prizes, and I have a picture of Jess wearing some of her jewelry, and that's coming up. Okay, and our next giveaway was the Voltage lamp, which went to Shannon Booth, and she came up with our, let's see if we can come up with what UNO stands for, and she came up with up and over. And Shannon has her lamp now, and I have a picture of the Voltage lamp in Shannon's home, and that's coming up. Okay, so, yep, another giveaway. You know how I love these. So, give me your answers to interocitor, Gilligan's Island. Let's go for it. This video. Rules are below. I will announce the winner next week, and this is yours. All right, we'll see you later.